Hello everyone, my name is Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. So we have literally just had a big update to the MALIGN Portents website in the form of a new short story, which is pretty exciting. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to summarise the story that's just come out and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, because it's kind of open to interpretation, it's really interesting, and I think it is telling us some new things about the Stormcast, which I haven't really thought about or talked about before. So it's been a while since I've talked about MALIGN Portents, and I'm quite excited to find out more, dig into the storyline a little bit more, and it's just fun to be talking about it again. So we've obviously had all of the 7 MALIGN Portents which were in the teasers, and basically all we know now is that we have to be patient and wait for the little short stories to come out, which are being regularly released on the MALIGN Portents website. Last time we looked at a pair of stories, one of them was the Cycle Interrupted, I think it was called, which was surrounding the story of Horticulus Slimux, and the other one so far has only appeared exclusively in White Dwarf. But the first story I thought had a strange kind of link to the first MALIGN Portent that was released, The Field. The crows, the imagery of the crops, and the moon with the skull in it, it all just seemed to somehow tie together. This story I think actually links a little bit to the icon, I believe this teaser was called. I wanted to call it the statue then, but it's called the icon and it features a statue, which, when the lightning strikes, the statue features a skeleton, thereby kind of inciting imagery of death. And this idea of death, a statue, and especially the lightning, which I think is really important here, they all tie into this storyline. Interestingly, when the icon came out on the Warhammer Facebook page, they showed this image here, which says, "Shadows gather in Sigmar's kingdoms, and none are safe." What is interesting about that is it kind of ties in even more strongly with what this storyline is about. The storyline basically follows someone who is devoted to Alariel, and I assume Sigmar, and yet he is very definitely not safe. So let's have a look at the story, which is titled Death at the Door. The title itself is interesting because I think it is also meant to mislead us. By calling it Death at the Door, we immediately think that it literally means the Death faction. How the story ends is actually open to interpretation, and it could well involve someone from the Death faction showing up, but that's not at all what I think is happening here. The story opens with Veric. He lives in a place called Sorrow Creek, some kind of settlement within Chiltus Forest. I believe Chiltus Forest has actually cropped up before in Age of Sigmar during the Season of War campaign, and it is in Ghyran, the Realm of Life. It's a long and dangerous road trip away from Greywater, one of the new towering strongholds in Ghyran, which was built after Sigmar's successful campaign in the Realm of Life, close to the Festamir Realm Gate. At Sorrow Creek, Veric is basically too far to attempt to flee there with his sick son, or to expect any help from that heavily fortified bastion. Veric was a member of the Free Guilds, who are essentially the free people of the realms, who marshal together during times of need to hold back the forces of chaos. They appear to have the ability to amass quite large numbers and are a pretty organised militia by the time this story is set. Anyway, Veric has previously been a member of the Free Guild, having spent 20 years there, and it seems like he has experienced some pretty harrowing and fear-inducing situations. Now, however, he lives at Sorrow Creek and looks after his son Julian, who is sick. It's been at least a decade since his days in the Free Guild, but Veric still has his wits about him and keeps his repeater crossbow close to hand at all times. It's strongly suggested that Julian has been infected by some kind of Nurgle blight, and I would say his chances don't look so good. The storyline is absolutely dripping with atmosphere. It's pouring with rain, and Veric lives in his house, which seems just about waterproof, There's a rough timber sort of palisade that's been thrown together around the settlement, held together literally by vines, and it actually doesn't really seem to offer particularly strong protection to Sorrow Creek at all. In fact, the only people left in Sorrow Creek are the sick, the weak, and the foolish. It's basically been abandoned due to the return of the Nurgle Rotskin tribes, who have stepped up their presence in the area and are spreading a weeping sickness that is slowly dispersing through the forests. Anyway, he peers out of his curtains, the rain is lashing down, and he can hear screams out in the forest beyond Sorrow Creek. There's an orange glow in the air, which is coming from the direction of, I guess, his neighbours called the Fendels, and Veric draws at least a small amount of comfort from the fact that the Vendels both died a few weeks ago, and therefore they can't be killed or corrupted or terrorised by the Rotskin anymore. So we've got all this screaming going on in the forest, and the next scream comes closer, so he grabs his crossbow and checks it's loaded. He's had this crossbow for 30 years. It's saved his life many times, and he relies on this thing. He trusts it. His 17-year-old son, Julian, comes down the stairs and offers to help Veric fight, but knowing how sick his boy is, Veric sends him back upstairs. Not before he throws up this black phlegm all over the floor, though. Julian is basically sent back upstairs to go and hide in his room, so off he goes. Veric then says a prayer to Alariel shortly before hearing a noise at the window, which he fires his crossbow at in an attempt to basically scare away his assailant. Now, I actually thought it was really cool that we're seeing humans worshipping Alariel, because obviously she is the goddess of life, but from before this point, all we've actually seen is the Sylvaneth worshipping Alariel. So that's a really cool little twist that they've put in there. Now comes the actual climatic end to the story. Light starts coming through the keyhole, and Veric's skin starts to prickle. Actual lightning then starts coming through the keyhole, and the door literally explodes open, fracturing into hundreds of splinters. Veric slips over, but somehow manages to keep hold of his crossbow, and in walks his attacker. Now this is the interesting bit. Listen to this description. The attacker is described as a statue formed from gleaming metal, rain pouring in rivulets down its stark white armour. He is then described to be surrounded by rippling arcs of lightning, and is also holding a warhammer clutched in his hands. He's also described to be wearing a war mask, which seems to gaze into Veric's very soul. The attacker steps forwards, raises his hammer for the killing blow, and Veric screams as the story draws to a close. Wow, okay, so first things first, it's a great story like the last two we've read. It's gripping, it's full of atmosphere, and I just like where this whole death thing is going. It just seems a lot more kind of gloomy and dark and sinister than Chaos were, and it kind of is shedding a new light on Chaos as well. It's very cool to just see how these people are living their lives whilst having to deal with the hardships and the constant threat of Chaos and now death as well. So let's talk about that last scene. The description of the attacker sounds to me like a Stormcast. Exactly like a Stormcast. A white one, I hear you cry? Well, if you are up to date on your lore, the Knights-Excelsior are white Stormcast Eternals. They have literally just shown up in the book that I'm reading at the moment, which is called Wardens of the Everqueen. The thing about the Knights-Excelsior is that they are extremely devout to their cause of eradicating all traces of chaos. Look at this picture here. The battlegrounds in their wake are left scorched and smoking, scoured of all life so that the taint of chaos is eradicated entirely. These guys are not necessarily nice. They aren't the good guys that we have believed the Stormcast to be. What I think is going on here is that we are witnessing a Knights-Excelsior entering Sorrows Creek to exterminate all who are infected with the taint of chaos. Veric's son Julian is likely affected by the Weeping Plague, and his father stands between the Stormcast and his target. So what does the Stormcast do? He indiscriminately and unhesitatingly just strikes them both down with his hammer. I haven't finished reading all of the Age of Sigmar books yet. In fact, I'm probably not even close. So I haven't read the book which is called City of Secrets. But I have heard that the Knight-Excelsior are also featured in that, and that it shows a very similar side to what we are seeing here. I think it's a great twist on how we view the Stormcast Eternals, having these murderous, mindless tyrants who will basically stop at nothing to purge all traces of chaos from the land. So why did I have a picture of a statue showing then? Why was I making this link with the statue? Well, basically the figure who walks in through the door is described twice as a statue. Some people are already speculating that we have a literal reanimated statue carrying out this attack. In my opinion, it is a metaphor, okay? Nothing more than a metaphor. And the story is absolutely jam-packed full of metaphors. Literally moments before that, it even described fingers of forked lightning. Okay, they're not actual fingers of forked lightning. It's just lightning, okay? It's metaphors. So I think there are people who are just reading into it a little bit too much. As for that title, Death at the Door, I think that it means death came to Veric's door, but not from an agent of Nagash, from an agent of Sigmar. Let me know what you think about this story down below. I can't wait to get the next story from the Malign Portents, and I can't wait until we get more details about this new, exciting saga of the Age of Sigmar. To be honest, that is the storyline. I will leave a link in the description to the website where you can find the original story. I didn't want to read it out word for word because, like the other storylines, it's not my story, so I'd rather summarise it than just straight out rip off Games Workshop and read it out myself. I think it was really cool. I really like where this is going and I can't wait to find out more. Let me know if you read the story. Let me know who you think the attacker is. Do you think the Stormcast are not as benevolent as we believe them to be? That's basically the picture that I'm getting at the moment. Thanks so much for all of your support, guys. You are all absolutely incredible and you are literally just changing my life with the positivity you are throwing my way. I am now, I believe, 9 pages into my lore part 3 video, and because it's so long and it's taken me so long to edit this massive document, I'm probably going to break it up into a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 videos. I've had to make a few small edits to it due to the fact that obviously the lore is continuing to be updated, and now we actually know how the realms formed and exactly what they are in sort of physical space. So obviously these things do take time to write, and obviously in the meantime, any new updates with Malign Portents I will keep you guys in the loop with. Yeah, just thank you so much, and I will see you guys really soon.